I have signed billion-dollar contracts without flinching. I have acquired companies before breakfast. I have closed deals that reshaped Manhattan's skylines. But nothing in my life prepared me for the moment I pulled over on Tremont Avenue, removed a fake taxi medallion from a rented Camry, and realized my wife had been lying to me for 10 years. Not about another man, not about money, about who she was. My name is James Wilson. My family's wealth isn't loud, it's institutional. Old Manhattan money, the kind that funds museums and buys senators time without ever raising its voice. I married Maria, believing she came from Westchester. Private school, safe upbringing, respectable background. That's what she told me. That's what I accepted. Last Thursday, I disguised myself as a taxi driver to catch her cheating. Instead, I followed her into the South Bronx, and I overheard a phone call that didn't expose an affair. It exposed my own arrogance. Before this story ends, you're going to decide whether I deserved what happened next, so stay with me, because this isn't about billions, it's about identity, in the cost of being loved for the wrong version of yourself. We had been married 10 years. 10 years of charity galas, Hampton summers, Aspen winters, private flights, and foundation dinners. Maria wore elegance effortlessly. She learned wine pairings. She could navigate a room of hedge fund managers. She knew which fork to use without looking down. She fit perfectly, or so I thought. The fracture began with something small, a folded pharmacy receipt in her coat pocket. South Bronx address. I assumed she had stopped somewhere random, but then came the late afternoons. Hair appointment, meeting an old friend, errand. Her explanations were reasonable, but her eyes weren't. There was something tense in them, guarded. Then I found the card. David Rodriguez, handwritten, hidden. No context, no explanation, and for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel secure. I felt replaceable. If you've ever had that moment, when certainty shifts into suspicion, you know it's not loud, it's quiet, it corrodes. Pause for a second. If you've ever doubted someone you love and hated yourself for it, type "been there" in the comments, because suspicion changes you before the truth ever does. I could have confronted her. Instead, I let pride take control. Wilson men don't beg for explanations. We investigate. I had security contacts, private investigators, resources, but something about this felt personal. I wanted to see it myself. So I did something absurd for a man worth several $billion. I bought thrift store jeans in Queens, scuffed boots, a Yankees cap pulled low. I rented a used white Camry under an assistant's name, and I waited outside our Park Avenue building like a stranger. When she walked out that Thursday afternoon and lifted her hand for a cab, I pulled forward. She opened the back door, and she didn't recognize me. That hurt more than I expected. Her perfume filled the car. 10 years of shared mornings, 10 years of sleeping beside her, and she didn't know she was sitting behind her husband. "Where to?" I asked. She said softly, "The Bronx, Tremont." The Bronx, not Westchester, not Manhattan, the Bronx. Then her phone rang. She answered immediately. "I'm on my way." Pause. He can't know. My pulse spiked. He can't know. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. "I can't lose this life," she whispered. "You don't understand what it took to get here." My stomach dropped. Lose this life? What life? And then she said the sentence that dismantled me. If he knew where I came from, he'd look at me differently. That wasn't an affair confession. That was fear. Tremont Avenue wasn't what I was used to. Narrow streets, worn brick buildings, fire escapes like rib cages on aging structures. She stepped out, paid cash, and walked quickly inside a modest apartment complex. No doorman, no marble lobby, no scent diffusers, just chipped paint and fluorescent lighting. I parked and followed at a distance. Through a partially open window, I heard voices. A man's voice. "David, you have to tell him." "I can't," Maria replied. "He deserves to know. And what happens when he decides I'm not enough?" Silence. I leaned closer. "He married a version of me that made sense to him," she continued. "Not the girl whose father died on a construction site. Not the girl who grew up on food stamps. Not the girl who used to wait tables in Midtown and practiced speaking without an accent so she could blend in." The air left my lungs. Waitress? Accent? Food stamps? Every piece of the biography she gave me shifted. "He'd never say it out loud," she whispered, "but he would see me differently." And that was the moment I had to confront something brutal. She wasn't afraid of losing money. She was afraid of losing respect. From me. I heard coughing from inside. Weak, deep, strained. "Mom, please drink some water," Maria said gently. Cancer. Late stage. Untreated aggressively. Because treatment was expensive, and my wife, living in a penthouse, had been secretly transferring money to cover medication without raising suspicion. Why didn't she ask me? Because she thought I would question it, and maybe I would have. That realization felt like a punch to the chest. For the first time since I followed her, the anger drained out of me. It didn't leave all at once. It thinned, like fog lifting slowly off water. I had followed her, believing I was the betrayed one. But standing outside that apartment, listening to my wife beg her dying mother to drink water, I wasn't the victim. I was the blind man. I thought about every conversation we'd had about money, every time I questioned a charge on the Amex, every time I joked about financial transparency. I told myself I valued honesty, but what I really valued was control. And suddenly, I had to ask myself something I had never asked before. If she had told me from the beginning that her father died in a hard hat, that she grew up on food stamps, that she waited tables while I was interning at my father's firm, would I have married her? The answer came too slowly, and that delay was everything. The apartment door opened. David stepped outside and closed it quietly behind him. The street light cut across his face, casting sharp shadows under his eyes. He didn't look impressed. He didn't look intimidated. He looked like a man who had spent years protecting something fragile. "You followed her," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "You thought she was cheating?" "Yes." He nodded once. "Good. That surprised me. You needed to see this." "See what?" I asked. "That she's been splitting herself in half for a decade." I didn't respond. He stepped closer. "Do you know what she did after her father died?" I shook my head. "She was 16. She picked up 2 part-time jobs, finished school, helped raise her brother, sent money home when there wasn't any." I felt my jaw tighten. "She didn't lie because she's ashamed of us," he said quietly. "She lied because she thought you were ashamed of people like us." That distinction cut deeper than accusation. "You ever build anything with your hands, James?" Silence. "Didn't think so." His tone wasn't mocking. It was factual. "You inherited leverage. She inherited survival." The words landed heavier than I expected. "She practices her voice before events," he added. "What?" "So she doesn't slip, so no one asks where she's from." That image, Maria standing in front of a mirror adjusting the way she speaks, unsettled me more than anything else that night. "She's been killing herself trying to protect a lie," he said. "She lied to me." "No," he corrected. "She lied to survive." And I stood there in borrowed clothes, outside a building I'd never had to enter before, realizing I didn't understand the woman I married. I drove home slower than I ever have,
Not because of traffic, because I wasn't ready to arrive. The penthouse felt different when I walked in. Not luxurious, detached. The marble floors, the city view, the quiet, all of it suddenly felt insulated, like a world that required editing to enter. I poured a drink, didn't touch it. I walked into my office and looked at the framed photos on the shelf. Fundraisers, charity events, award ceremonies. Maria smiling beside me, elegant, composed, controlled. Had she ever felt relaxed in those rooms, or was she constantly calculating herself? I remembered a dinner 2 years ago. An investor joked about urban neighborhoods and culture problems. I had laughed politely. Maria had gone quiet. At the time, I thought she was just tired. Now I wondered if she was swallowing something. Privilege doesn't feel aggressive when you live inside it. It feels normal, and that's what makes it dangerous.
When she walked into the penthouse that night, she looked exhausted, emotionally, physically, like she had been carrying something heavy alone for too long. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I placed the taxi medallion on the kitchen island. Her eyes locked onto it instantly. Color drained from her face. "You were the driver?" "Yes." Silence expanded between us. Not explosive, not dramatic, just thick. "How long?" she whispered. "Long enough." She sat down slowly, not defensive, defeated. "I wanted to tell you," she said. "When?" "When I felt safe." That hit harder than anger would have. "You were safe," I said. "With you?" she asked softly. "Or with the version of me you preferred?" That stopped me completely. "You laughed at those jokes," she continued. "What jokes?" "The ones about neighborhoods like mine, about people lacking discipline, about mindset being the only difference between poverty and wealth." I remembered. Cocktail hour, scotch glasses, light laughter, harmless, not harmless. "You didn't say anything," she said. "I didn't think it mattered." Exactly. She wasn't shouting. That made it worse. "You never asked deeper questions about my past," she added quietly. "You accepted the version that fit your world." I felt something tightening in my chest. "When my uncle asked you tonight, would you have married me if you knew?" Silence. I could have lied. I didn't. I hesitated. Her breath caught, and in that moment I saw it clearly. That hesitation was the fracture. That's why I hid, not because I wanted to deceive you, because I didn't know if you would choose me. This wasn't about a lie. This was about worth. "You married a curated biography," she said. "And you married a man who needed to evolve." It was the first honest sentence I'd said all night. She stood up slowly. "I don't want to be impressive anymore," she said. "What do you want?" "To be real, without worrying it will cost me everything." That sentence stayed in the room long after she walked away, and I stood there realizing something I had never had to confront before. Money protects you from many things, but it does not protect you from the consequences of your blind spots. Let me ask you something. If you built your life from nothing, would you tell the whole truth to someone who never had to? Or would you adjust it? Be honest in the comments, because survival rewrites identity in ways comfort never understands.